4 living presidents were in New York City. The first 3, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Sleepy Joe Biden, were at a fundraising event for Biden. The host, Stephen Colbert, and Lizzo, of all people, was there. She's the main event performing. But the 4th one that was in New York, Donald J. Trump was there, but he was attending the wake of the slain New York police officer, Jonathan Diller, God rest his soul. He's a 31-year-old officer who was killed in the line of duty by a career criminal who has been arrested more than 20 times. He leaves behind a wife and a 1-year-old son. President Trump met with the deceased cop's wife yesterday, and this is what he had to say about the tragedy. Kelly, please play the clip.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I want to thank Bruce and all of the people that have worked so hard to make this area beautiful and safe. And this is what happened, is such a sad event, such a horrible thing. And it's happening all too often. And we're just not going to let it happen. We just can't. 21 times arrested, this thug. And the person in the car with him was arrested many times. And they don't learn because they don't respect. They're not given the respect. The police are the greatest people we have. There's nothing and there's nobody like them. And this should never happen. I just visited with a very beautiful wife that now doesn't have her husband. Stephanie was just incredible. Their child, brand new, beautiful baby, sitting there innocent as can be, and doesn't know how his life has been changed. But the Diller family you'll never be the same. You can never be the same. And we have to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to get back to law and order. We have to do a lot of things differently because this is not working. This is happening too often. It's an honor to be here. And again, I want to just thank all of you folks for allowing this. And Bruce, thank you. Bruce has been a friend of mine for a long time. He's done an incredible job out here. But this is such a sad occasion. The only thing we can say is maybe something is going to be learned. We've got to toughen it up. We've got to strengthen it up. This should never be allowed. Things like this shouldn't take place, and to take place so often. So thank you all for being here. It's an honor, and it's an honor for me to be here. This is a great family, the Diller family. I met the friends, and I met every one of them inside, and these are just incredible people that are just devastated. They're devastated. They've got a tough road. It's going to be a very tough road. So thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right, so guys, the 2 men in the car during the fatal stop had 35 charges between the 2 of them. Think about that. 30, not just misdemeanor, 35 times between both of them. One of them was in prison for attempted murder, the one that actually shot him, and he was out on bail for gun possession, okay? But to no surprise, the White House, as they always do, shifting the blame. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre blaming the gun on the crime.
Relates to the death of the officer. Look, our hearts go out to this officer who tragically lost his life in the line of duty. We're also praying for his family during this difficult time, who now has an empty seat at their dinner table. President Biden is deeply grateful for the sacrifices police officers make to keep our community safe. This shooting is yet another painful reminder of the toll of gun violence, that what it's doing to inflict on families in our communities in our nation. And that's why the president signed more than 24 executive actions. That's why we're able to pass a bipartisan agreement to deal with the gun violence that we're seeing in this country. Obviously, more work needs to be done. We need Congress to continue to act on making sure that our communities are safe. Yeah. Again, our hearts go out to this officer and
doesn't say his
his
name.
Family. It's a difficult time for them.
Doesn't say his name. Ready for this? And now here's one more clip just of her audio. She's blaming, she always does, the Republicans. Listen to this.
Under the previous administration, which repeatedly attempted to cut the COPS program, all of their budgets targeted that key funding for the police, and congressional Republicans just proposed doing it again. So this is a Biden-Harris administration have done the polar opposite, taking decisive action from the very beginning to fund the police and achieving a historic reduction in crime under his leadership.
So by the way, whose idea was defund the police? Does anybody remember that? It wasn't the Republicans, okay? So Pat, you see 4 presidents there. Some of them are there raising money for Joe Biden. Donald Trump flies from Florida, goes there, is with the family. It's almost as he's beating them every turn that he gets. You see the narrative. You see what one president's doing and what the other one's doing. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
So one is relying on the celebrity type of an event, Lizzo, the influence, Hollywood, getting their attention, and that's one way of doing it, because none of these decisions are made without somebody behind closed doors doing the math to say what's gonna get us closer to raising more money to create ads against the other or for us. So Michelle, Barack, Clinton, and Biden are sitting there saying, "Look, let's do a fundraiser and raise money. America's gonna forget about this event. This officer, great, yeah, he's gonna show up. America within a news cycle goes so quickly. Don't worry about it. We'll cover it up. 24, 48 hours, it's gone." So on the other side, what is happening today, even today with the guest that we had, Roland G. Fryer,
Yeah,
right?
amazing.
This is the professor, the doctor that at Harvard was the youngest tenure in 2009 at the age of 30. He was recognized by Time Magazine, top 100% in the world, influential. Did a study in 2016, 2017 as an African American, seeing if the cops are tougher on African Americans than whites.
Especially with
Gun
violence.
violence. So he goes and does the first round of research. He says, whoa, the results are not good. They're actually gentler with African Americans than they are with whites. Let's do it again. So he does it again, and the results are the same. Then he brings it in, tells them, there is none of this going on. This is false stuff that we're talking about. Sends the email. It's a 100-page report. And a person responds back within 5 minutes saying, this is bullshit. He says, wait a minute. How did you read it so quickly in 5 minutes? They didn't read it, but it goes against the plan and the narrative. Then Claudine Gay comes back and talks to Larry Bobo at the time to try to get this guy to lose his tenure and say, now we got to get rid of him. We got to get rid of him. And then long story short, she becomes the president with the help of Barack Obama, and she gets caught with plagiarism and all the positions that they take. And then she had to resign, but she still makes her $900,000 a year. He said he's doing a study right now on what cops are going through today. Everybody's talking about what everybody else is going through today, but what are cops going through today? What are cops' families going through today? When's the last study we did to find out what are cops' kids, parents, growing up without, spouses, siblings, communities? So the fact that Trump went over there, if America, those people who are for protecting your communities and taking care of the cops, if that resonates with them, they're going to sit there and say one went to raise money, one went to a funeral to give respect to the family. They're going to vote accordingly.
Yeah, and I get it, and you nailed it. I get it. Trump is taking an opportunity. I mean, obviously, if this was just any regular day, he probably, he has enough stuff going on in his life. But this is a constant narrative. Trump is there before. Trump is in East Palestine. Trump is at the border, and these guys keep coming second place.
Parting, and this topic hits really close to home. Back home, I used to run the biggest, police support organization there. We had a little bit of a summer of love back in Chile, and police were completely unsupported. Like, they wouldn't, while the riots were going on, they wouldn't let them use the bathroom. So we brought them diapers.
Cool.
It's not pretty to say it, but we brought them diapers, Gatorade, because it would be at the riots for hours on end. And we started this organization to help them out. We helped them out with trials. We helped them out with their kids, documentaries and whatever. And I think policing is such an important function of society in general. That's how we keep law and order. And most of the blame goes into the police forces, but a police here in Florida acts different than a policeman in New York. So you have DAs, you have judges that they will throw the book at them. Then you have the press that if you look up on the New York Times, there's a police story every single day.
Of course.
One of the police guys, they have a podcast called I think it's called Unsubscribe. And he already thinks it's funny because he gets 3 articles a week about something that he did. He looked at someone ugly or whatever.
Yeah.
Any word gets out, and they get pummeled. And without police, we can have a civil society. On my side.
And look at even deeper. You mean to tell me there's 2 guys in a car that have been arrested 35 times? I'm thinking if you get arrested for attempted murder or something, you should be in there for at least enough time to where you're not out to do 35. So Pat, where's How does that happen? How is somebody arrested? Is it because New York is that type of place where they're like catch, release, bail, this, that? How are these people still out in the streets after he's doing all that? He was out on bail he already did attempted murder, and he was out for a possession of a gun.
There's three different things. One, New York bad policies have consequences. You're seeing it in New York. There's plenty of examples in it. The squatters law that DeSantis changed here in New York, squatters law are being used to take advantage of the owners of homes. So bad policies have consequences. It's not going to be good for the existing politicians here. This is one of the reasons why we did something on PBD Podcast a couple of weeks ago that does Trump actually have a chance at winning New York?
Yeah.
This is why Trump's administration thinks they could potentially win in New York. The one thing we haven't talked about is the following thing. Do you remember in 2016 when you're watching every day? I would be on Facebook and I'm like, this guy's doing another talk. Where is he? And this is at what time? 10 o'clock. Got it. 1 o'clock. Is this the same one? This is a different one?
Yeah.
He's in. Wow. Crazy. 5 o'clock. There's no way. Yeah. He's in another. So it was at a time where he was doing 20 talks, give or take a week.
Yep.
Hillary's doing one.
Yep.
And everybody and their mothers thought Hillary was going to win, and we all know who won. They're forgetting this because the only what they're not thinking about is they're thinking 2024 is the same as 2020. The weapon they had in 2020 to take advantage of what was going on was a very rare climate, a black swan. What was the black swan?
COVID.
Can they win in a non-black swan? If there is no black swan and they go like this, doing all the celebrity type of tours, and Trump's going to the families and outworking them, this is gonna be a behemoth
Very
of a victory.
Landslide. But that's the scary part, Pat. That's the scary part is that black swan that they keep talking about, that they keep warning us about. They keep going on MSNBC and they have
making
these
movies about
the
it.
movies, and it's like slowly but surely. And I'm happy that you talked about Trump, Pat, and the record. Although this is a tragedy, and I pray for the officer's soul and I pray for his family. You said this a couple of weeks ago, and I think I'm happy. Not that it happened, but that Americans are getting to see a case study of 4 years of this guy and 4 years of this guy. You're getting to see it. So when it gets to the voting booths, it shouldn't be that much of a...
Vinny, it's an ongoing case study. Like, that's why the states are divided in states. They have different laws, and you can see how wonderful Florida is. You can see how great, Texas is, and then you go to New York, you go to California, and you can see it in real time. The same day, you can see what bad policies are and what good policies are. You're one airplane away from seeing like the final end of this happening.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And speaking of case studies, Rob and I were actually just doing a little research project into some things from the past. And while we were studying the Obama 2008 campaign, we were reflecting on how this guy had a relationship with police. And I come from a police family. My dad was a cop for 27 years down here.
Great.
And what we realized in that discussion was things were okay for a while. Like, Obama's victory seemed like a racial harmony coming out of the difficult times of the 90s. But then all of a sudden, Trayvon Martin happened. And race relations and community police relations got terrible. Even though George Zimmerman wasn't a cop, it sort of kicked off the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And there was a moment actually before Trayvon Martin where everybody got an idea of what Obama actually was about. And it was when his pastor, Dr. Jeremiah Wright, had a run-in with some police in his neighborhood. Obama came out and did a press conference and said, "The police acted stupidly in what they did." No president had ever accused cops of being stupid before.
Yeah.
But suddenly everybody knew where this guy stood. And remember, shortly after he said, if I had a son, he would have looked like Trayvon and all that. There was a shooting in Dallas where somebody took out a few cops.
Oh, yeah, they're sniping them.
Yeah, sniping a bunch of cops. And nobody ever tried to follow up on that and say, hey, maybe the president's rhetoric is what led to this.
No. Or you'd be racist. Rob, what do you think?
Well, three things. It's not a cop issue and it's not a gun issue. I like that's the default argument.
Of course.
It's a gun issue. We need to, but if you take away the guns, you think the bad guys are just going to volunteer? They're
Hell
oh,
no.
you know
Here's
what,
my
you guys,
gun.
Yeah.
and we've seen that fail before. They've done bullets for shoes, and you'll get some people that come, but the bad guys that have bad intentions are going to hold on to their guns. They're going to try and take guns away from people who are who have them to protect themselves from the bad guys. So it's not a gun issue. It's realistically a criminal justice reform issue. How is somebody that's been arrested 21 times not only out on bail, if there was bail, we don't know if bail was waived, but how does he have access to a gun?
How's he? Yeah, and
Isn't it already illegal to have a gun?
Any of you guys
in
been
New York?
arrested? How many? Like, I've never been detained. I've never been in handcuffs. I've never been in the back of a squad car. How does that happen to you 21 times and you're still walking around on the street?
That's the system.
Robert, you're killing me. My boss is here. I can't say that.
Whatever happened in what country you're from that we're not allowed to say on the air?
That policing is different. But yeah, no, Rob, that's you're right. That's the nucleus of the problem is how are these people out in the streets? And it's not as if, guys, like New York, this is such a surprising thing. When the governor has to deploy, by the way, Army, Air Force, when you're deploying National Guard to inside within your, in the tunnel, in subways, something's wrong. And instead of just putting Band-Aids on this shit, it's like, and I'm telling you right now, I think one of my remedies is I want to know what you guys think. And I actually wrote this down. I want to know what you guys think. So politicians should have a job review, meaning you just won, you're the governor. You're Governor Patrick Bet-David of New York. And you're in for, what's their term, 4? Is it 4 years for a governor? Let's say 4 years. I think regardless what your tenure is to be, you have, if they'll pick 3 categories. Either, I think crime has to be number 1, unemployment, and something, maybe transportation, accidents, or whatever. If it gets to a certain level, like of a breaking point, like what New York is like that, you have to get out. You have to step down. Like, if you could think about it, and whoever you were running against, whoever's the next one up, they have to come in. Because at what point, I want to.
Well, Vinny, we already have political job reviews. It's called an election. The problem is that our elections are so messed up with how it's done, where we have a media that will carry water for one candidate over another. The media's job is to hold people accountable for, hey, Governor so-and-so, in your state, crime is through the roof and quality of life has deteriorated dramatically. People can't afford basic goods. What are you doing about it? That should be how the media addresses politicians. And if they can't answer those questions, they get voted out. But instead, we get all these facts thrown around of like, oh, actually, believe it or not, Biden's done a fantastic job. Inflation doesn't actually mean what you think it means. And everything's fine. And everybody's doing great. And it's actually greedy corporations putting fewer potato chips in your bag. That's what they do to cover it up and stop the job review.
I think there's a problem bigger than just elections. I think in this country, there is a culture of a loss of respect for human life. I think it's part the media's fault. I also think technology plays into it because you look at X, right? X, you can go on and it was horrific to watch, but I'm looking for news of the Russian shooting when it was going on at the concert hall, and you're seeing videos of these armed terrorists walking in and shooting people.
Slicing throats.
So it becomes people have been desensitized to it, and it does not help that Karine Jean-Pierre goes on and refuses to acknowledge the officer's name, to say she has a binder. She doesn't come to these press conferences unprepared. She comes prepared with a statement usually, right? Yeah. She said the officer twice, not his name. Yep. There's a reason for that. I hate to be going deeper than it is, but I look at that and I go, that's part of the reason why there's this loss of life. We're not putting a name on it. People it doesn't feel like a person died. You hear officer, not Jonathan Diller, father of one, husband, now has an infant at home without a father. They don't humanize these stories. They just brush it off. The officer. So now people who are watching this, they're not as emotionally impacted as they would be had they heard the press secretary, the president of the United States coming out and talking about this officer and his family and the repercussions
and what is Jean-Pierre doing while she's addressing it?
She's blinking and looking down.
She's saying also, look, the president's done so much on gun violence and addressing all these things, and we've reached bipartisan consensus. Well, it didn't work, obviously, because a cop just died.
And not to cut you off, and Trump goes out there, 77 years old. He talked for 2-3 minutes, didn't look down, knew everybody's name, looked at everybody in the camera, felt bad for the family. It's like, what are we even talking about?
Was it Breonna Taylor that it was say her name? Was that?
Say her name.
Why are we not having that same for this guy? Say his name. Why is there not this outrage that the White House won't even address the officer by his name? It's harmful.
This shouldn't be surprising. This is by design. The left detest police forces.
I think so too.
We did a study, like when the protests were going on, and we look at the street signs, whatever they did, the graffitis and whatever. The most common one is ACAB. Like most Antifa guys will tag, you know what it is?
ACAB. All cops are bastards.
All cops are bastards.
Wow.
They are against. There's a bunch of degenerate philosophers that are against police forces. They detest them. Like when she came out there, she was like physically disgusted of having to defend the cop or say anything. Even saying officer was hard for her because she doesn't care. She wants the complete destruction of this police force because it's not their police force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not getting better, by the way. And it's not getting New York. I'm telling you right now, two of my cousins, my aunt lives in New York, and my other cousins live in New York. And they're like, listen, we're scared to even go because you saw the video the other day, Pat, where their TikTokers are just getting sucker punched in the head. Guys, illegals are beating the shit out of New York City's finest, and they're walking out of jail, and they're doing this, and it's like. If you're not a New Yorker, and because we're going to close back, but and we talked about the election, but now Hochul, I don't know how much longer does she have. When it's that abysmal of a record, and Mayor Adams, there's no like, hey guys, we got to get these. You can't like impeach them and get them the hell out, can you?
Well, no, he made a perfect point on the job review is election. That is the job review we have, and you have to be careful because watch what they try to do with Trump is impeach, impeach, impeach. I'm sitting with my Goldman Sachs guy this week, and he said the economy does the best when no one party owns all three branches. It's like not branches. You got Senate, House, and presidential position. As long as it's broken, it's divided, stock market performs the best. When it is all on one side, stock market doesn't trust it. They don't, because that's when you make radical laws, whatever that may be. Forget the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So what if they had the Senate 66%? What if they had the House? What if they had... Then you have Trump being impeached. Then what happens? Then let's impeach. Let's impeach. Let's impeach. Let's impeach. Then you can't have momentum of governing. So, but people have to pay very close attention. Again, the biggest thing with this is a part of all of this stuff happening is someone's going to come in. If there's no black swan, there's going to be constant pressure on the opposite side to get your streets cleaned up. Because who is right now calling out New York? Nobody is.
Nobody is.
Podcasters are.
Us.
But who's calling them out? Not many people.
Nope.
Once the election changes and the job review comes for Biden, somebody new gets in, it's going to be very different New York.